In the previous lesson, we saw how we can link an external CSS in our website so that every page can gather information from that particular link that we put in the head of the HTML document. So the external CSS is the most popular and also the better solution when you are stylizing a website, so that you don't have to go page by page and everything is set up externally for all the pages. So we started to work with CSS and we started to see that it's basically made of selectors, which identify a particular part of our page, or let's say our layout or structure of the page. And sometimes they identify like a specific element like the heading. And then we have rules that said, okay, do this on this. So basically they are like properties that we can add to elements in our page, in our composition. Nowadays we use divs to create the structure or layout of our website. The div or division, div stands for division, it's an empty container if we don't put anything in it. So it's basically this, it's represented here by this blue line surrounding the green area, because we put a green background to this div. Now, when we're working with layout, we can work with the live preview, but also it's useful to work with the design view here in Dreamweaver. And basically, we're going to construct our websites using divs, but they're not going to be called only div. You can give any name to this. So this is kind of a generic div right here. So we're going to do more example. We're going to talk more about the div and the layout in this lesson about Dreamweaver. Before we move on, let's create another div right here. So you can see here in the source code that I've put an heading inside the content here of this empty container. So let's say I want to call this logo, because maybe I'm going to put there the logo. Okay, let's say that I want to add another div. So we saw that we can add from here, insert, and HTML div. So this is the generic div. So if I click here, it's going to ask me where I want to put this. And this may change. So if I do it like this, it's going to show me that little panel. Let's go in the live mode, and I'm going to do again div. And you can see this changes a little bit. But these are the same exact thing we find in the other option. So let me go back to design. And again, do div. So it's asking me if I want to put this at the insertion point. Where is my insertion point? It's right here, where this flashing line is. Or here, we can select it in the page. So we can say, okay, I want to put this at the insertion point, or after the start of a tag, so right here, or before the end of a tag, so right here. So let's say that we want to put this in the insertion point, and we need to also choose if you want to do a class or an ID, and if we want to define a new CSS rule. Now, before we do all of this, let's just create like the standard. So you can see that this one went inside the previous div. So we have containers div, but also we can have div that are contained into another div, creating what is called a hierarchical structure in terms of importance. So the containers, of course, are more important than the content. And we can call this also a father and child relation. So this one here is the parent, the bigger one, and this one here is the child. We can also tell that from here, from the DOM panel, showing you this exact structure and hierarchy. Or we can tell it also down here. So if I go inside the second div I created, you can see that first div is right here, and then we have the second one, which is the child inside the parent container. Now, as you can see, it's not really handy to call everything div, but we're going to start to give some names. Now, for this new lesson, I want to create a new site with a new folder, and it's going to be lesson 9. And I'm going to create some more stuff here, and we're going to start all over again so we can understand better. So I'm going to start with the HTML document. And that's going to be, as usual, an empty page, which we're going to call index. So we understood this so far. And then I'm going to go here on the right side. I'm going to start to insert. So divs are generic groups, generic divisions and containers. Then you have all this part which is the content. So you have images, paragraph, headings, table, and other stuff like lists and hyperlinks. So these are basic HTML content that they come with a specific selector already. So if I do, for example, an order list, the unordered list selector will be UL. Okay, let me delete that. Now, if we go a little bit more down here in the HTML insertion, we can see this part. And these are the main parts of a website structure or layout. We have the header, the navigation bar, the main content, we have side panels, articles, sections, and footer. So let's do something simple. I'm going to create a header. And again, I find this panel right here. You can choose this or you can choose the live design. It's basically doing the same thing, just a little bit different. So let's now use the live design. So I'm going to do a header. And before I click inside here in the body, you can see right now it's identifying the body. So let's go again, header. And now it's not going to ask me anything. It's just going to put there the header. And that's going to be the name you see of this div. It's already called header. So I don't need to create a div with a specific name. And then I can go, I can follow, let's do a navigation. And again, you see, it's asking me to do it right here. But if I click here and do navigation, I can now say, okay, put this before the heading or after, or wrap it around the selected tag, which is the heading, or nest it as a child inside the heading. So in this case, these are two separate parts. So I'm going to do this like after. Okay, so, well, nothing fancy. It's like creating, empty shells with a little bit of text inside. And then if I press enter again, let's do main. Okay, now let's use this one here. So where we want to put this? Well, let's put it in the insertion point. And it doesn't have a class. It doesn't have an ID, but that's fine. Let's do OK. And again, this is a generic tag and a generic div, but it's called main. And now let's do the last one. Is going to be the footer. And again, do we want to specify a class? But we don't have any class at the moment or any ID. Well, let's change this. Let's make this footer a page footer. Okay, something different, page footer, and say OK. So you can see nothing is happening because we don't really have that already set up. We don't have IDs, we don't have classes. I'm not going to explain to you what those are. Refresh here, and now you can see for each one of these, we have a different representation here. Now this footer ID actually is applied. So we see that this is called page footer, but we see that right here is called footer because we created with the footer element right here. Now we don't have any CSS. So how can I actually work with this divs since I don't have CSS? So remember the last lesson, we need to go in the CSS designer and we need a source. So somewhere where we can store the rules that we're going to give to these divs, to these selectors. So I'm going to go here and create a new CSS file because right now I don't have it in this website. So I'm going to browse lesson 9. I'm going to call this CSS for layout. So again, CSS can be used for style, colors, etc., fonts, but also for just the layout. You can also create more CSS, one for the layout, one for the style. And let's link it. So now that I have the source, you can see here it's telling me select a CSS source and click on the plus sign to add a selector. So now I can actually click on the plus and create the selector for the header. So I'm going to remove body because I don't really need that. And this is going to be enough to select that specific element in my page, which is going to be the header. And I can start to put some background just to, identify the various parts here. Okay, so that's the header. And same goes for all the others. So for each div I created, I need to create a new selector. And let's assign some quick